Hello, everyone. You're watching CoinDesk Live. We are coming to you from Stellar Meridian 2025 in Rio de Janeiro. We are right here on the conference floor where we'll be bringing you breaking news from within the Stellar ecosystem and talking about how people here in LATAM are using crypto. I'm Jen Sanasi here with my co-host today, Sam Ewan. Sam, welcome to Brazil.
Jen, we're here in Rio. It's wonderful out. This is my third Meridian. I will say I feel like the attendance has doubled. There's a lot of excitement. We walked the floor earlier. I'm just really happy to be here.
This is your third Meridian, my first Meridian.
Yes.
So lay the foundation for me. What can we expect? What's the vibe of Meridian and how is it built over the years?
I mean, look, the first time that we were here, we saw a ton of activity happening. People were building a lot of the tools that now we're seeing roll out into the world. We were not talking stablecoins the way we're talking stablecoins. I'm really excited to have that conversation. We're not talking real-world adoption the way we're talking about it now. The development community is very excitable, and they're here like showing up in force. So I think we're gonna have a great time. I'm really excited for all of our guests, and I will say Stellar does a great job. Every place we go, we feel like we really become a part of that community. So we were in Spain, then we were in London, now we're here in Latin America. Latin America is popping off. So I'm really excited to sort of understand what's happening in this region from an adoption perspective, from a development perspective. And these are the places where people need crypto most, and they need these types of tools most. So I think we're gonna hear a lot about that today.
You hit on a really important point there. I love coming to Latin America and seeing these actual real-world use cases. We talk about real-world use cases so much, but it's not until you go to places where the financial system really doesn't work for the majority of people where you see crypto innovation really solving problems for people. We're going to be talking about stablecoins from a few different angles throughout the day. I think we even have a documentary filmmaker who has traveled around the world documenting stories of people whose lives have been changed because of stablecoins and other different types of blockchain innovation. And so that's what I'm excited about. From sitting where we are in the United States, it's a little bit of a different story, and it's a story that I like following.
I'm with you. Stablecoin summer is here. We're at the tail end of it. We're heading into stablecoin fall, winter. It's going to be stablecoin for a long time now. And I think it's actually, other than the sort of store of value conversation we've had, stablecoins are the most exciting thing in crypto right now. I know we're going to be talking to a lot of people, including our next guest, who really knows something about this topic. So I'm excited to also get to that.
Well, you teased it, so let's just get right to our next guest. Joining us now is Jose Fernandez de Ponte, the President and Chief Growth Officer of the Stellar Development Foundation, where he focuses on scaling adoption and payments, tokenization, and open finance. Hello, Jose.
Hello, Jen. So good to see you, Sam.
Pleasure.
Jose, I almost stumbled on my words there. Last time I talked to you, you had a different title. You were working at a different company. Now you're here at Stellar. For our audience that doesn't know, you previously led the charge on digital assets at PayPal. Talk to us about making that move. Why is Stellar the right next step for you?
You're absolutely right. I was at PayPal for a long time, being part of that team. And I think that it's been established that PayPal was probably the OG in terms of large fintechs getting into digital assets and digital currencies. It only made sense when you wanted to go to outside of the UX and application side and closer to the infrastructure. Stellar was a very, very logical transition. There is one blockchain out there that is built for everyday financial services is Stellar. And one of the drivers of that, I think that was super important in my mind is, say, PayPal jumped into stablecoins way before it was fashionable. And now you see everybody getting into that turf. You see a lot of people who are trying to build their own layer one blockchain. So one of the things that drove me to the space is that I think that is extremely important that there are free open source permissionless blockchains out there. I think I'm all for payment companies building layer ones, search engines building layer ones. I think there should be a multiplicity of options. But if you use email as an analogy, I think that SMTP was a really, really important thing. I'm all for you using a Gmail account or you using an Apple email account, as long as I can use Proton or use Thunderbird or build my own client. So I think that's part of that tapestry of options is important, that the open web continues to be open. And that's why I decided it made sense to come here and help.
Jose, you're taking on a role as president of the foundation.
Yes.
What is your vision for how you're going to move it forward? They've done such a good job to date, and obviously that was very attractive of you to come over. But as we look at something where we are seeing everyone talking about crypto from Wall Street to Main Street. How's your vision going to really propel Stellar into the forefront of that?
I think that the Stellar ecosystem has been very vibrant. I think we can see that in the venue. We can see it in the streets of Brazil in this conference. And there are a lot of very, very relevant brand names who have built on Stellar over the years. PayPal announced that it was taking POSD to Stellar, but Franklin Templeton has built on Stellar, MoneyGram has built on Stellar. As a lot of the TradFi institutions these days are looking into how do they move into blockchain, I believe that as with the experience of someone who has built on the enterprise side on blockchains, hopefully I can help address some of the requirements that, on the one side, developers need to think about when they are designing for extreme distribution, and also address some of the fears or concerns that some of the TradFis still will have. So hopefully, I can help make Stellar more top of mind for those enterprises that want to build on blockchains.
Sam and I were just talking about the fact that we're sitting here in Rio de Janeiro. I'd love to hear your perspective from your previous seat and now where you sit now. How important is Latin America when it comes to developing stablecoins and also what you're doing at the Stellar Development Foundation?
Latin America is extremely, extremely important. I grew up in Europe. I've lived in California for 15 years, and I cut my teeth in payments in Latin America and Southeast Asia and Africa. And as the saying goes, the future is here. It's unevenly distributed, right? I'm sure that we all spend a ton of time in rooms where people would ask, why do you need a stablecoin if we have X? Some of the most sophisticated users that you will find of financial services live in Latin America. We are in Brazil today. I think that PIX has been a fantastic innovation for account-to-account payments that many of the other countries in the world are looking at and trying to figure out. For many of us who were building in the space, and especially for those folks who are based in Europe or in North America, I think that coming to the countries where the cutting edge of innovation is happening and approaching that with a healthy dose of humility is important. I think that we see extremely sophisticated users here, and making sure that the stuff that we build and the stuff that gets built on our blockchains serves their needs is important, and you need to walk the streets of these countries to be aware of that.
You know, Jose, it makes me think of the music industry, right? The most dominant popular form of music is hip-hop.
Yep.
Hip-hop was born from people not having access to like traditional instruments. They like made their own tracks, they made their own music. It came out of like poor neighborhoods, and now it's a global dominant culture. I think there's a parallel here, which is that in LATAM, in India, in Africa, in parts of Asia, where we don't have sophisticated tools, people start building what is necessity for them, and then that actually pushes the whole market to say, oh, what could we do if we were able to give this access to everybody? And is there an approach that's like bottom up versus top down as we look at it? Because I assume financial institutions want the wealthiest people first, but is the real opportunity in the groundswell?
I think there absolutely is. As you were saying, innovation starts with the stuff that is good enough, that is not super polished, is not built to scale, is not beautiful, and has all the corner cases addressed, but it does the job. And that starts very much in the grassroots and it starts in the developer community. I think that there is a space then where you can reach a plateau. And it's important that we help the ecosystem go past that plateau. Because in the end, as an industry, we have been great at making that good enough product. We have not been great yet at making sure that it's easy to understand. And as they say, if your user doesn't know how to use your product, it's not their problem, it's your problem. So how do we manage that transition from good enough into something that a mainstream user can engage with and does not need a handbook to figure it out and does not need to understand passphrases and cryptography and all of it? How we make blockchain transparent for the non-expert user, I think that's the next step that we need to take.
I want to talk a little bit more about what Sam just brought up there. I spent some time in Africa, and I want to say, I thought that financial innovation far surpassed what I had experienced in North America when I was there. Mm-hmm. When I was there, you can open up a bank account with a selfie. There were things like M-Pesa that was making it easy for people to do peer-to-peer payments in a different way than we're talking about today. Is it almost that North America has too many large players, too many regulators that kind of make it so that innovation can't move as quickly as it is in other parts of the world?
There are many angles to that question. Regulation is important. I think that when you're dealing with, one thing is if you're dealing with media or NFTs or some of the other stuff, when you're dealing with everyday financial services, regulation is important. And you need to accept that if you're working on something that matters, whether it's education or healthcare or energy or finance, more likely than not, it's going to be regulated. Arguably, yes, regulation in the US in this space moved at a slower pace than we all wanted. And a lot of people did a lot of work over the years to make sure that we could get to Genius Act and some of the other initiatives that are in Congress now. It's a balance. You need to make sure that the degree of regulation is the right one so that people are safe and there is consumer protection, but also that you don't suffocate the bird by holding too tightly. Many of these markets, and are more frontier markets, they have been more aggressive in that way. We need to strike the right balance, because the least that you want is innovation running amok and then people losing money. And we're talking about people's finances and their day-to-day means of living. So it's very important that we strike that right balance.
Jose, I'm thinking a lot about digital money, and I think about it in the sense that the traditional credit card companies, the Visas, MasterCards, Amexes, really disrupted the cash business, if you would, right? And then PayPal comes along and disrupts, in many ways, the credit card business. Now we have crypto, and I think all of them are paying a lot of attention because they're a little worried. Is there something coming from a more traditional, modern finance company? What should they be worried about when it comes to crypto?
I don't know that they should be worried about it. I think that they should adapt to it. I mean, that a lot of the fintech innovation that we have seen in the last probably 30 years is mostly innovation in the front end. It's a slicker interface to interact on the mobile phone. It's something that is easier to use, but the fundamental plumbing and the pipes of money have been the same. Yeah. I think that we're moving to a space in which I don't think that the old pipes are going to be wiped away, but definitely there's going to be a chunk of the volume that is going to go through these new pipes, and people should adapt. Not only the fintechs, also the TradFis and the credit card companies. I don't think that credit cards are going to disappear. I don't think that banks are going to disappear, but definitely there is a relevant part of the volume that you're going to see going through these new instruments. And you see many of those folks who are adjusting already. We talk about PayPal. PayPal is clearly adjusting already. Stripe is clearly adjusting already. I think that you're seeing some of those companies that are saying, hey, this is here to stay. This is part of the new reality. It's a cheaper, faster way to settle payments, and it is not going to go away. So we better get ready for it.
All right, we're here at Stellar Meridian. Like I said, we are in Rio de Janeiro. There is some breaking news that's going to be coming across on this broadcast over the next 2 days. I know you're going to be back at the desk tomorrow for some news of your own, so we'll keep it zipped on that. We'll have you back tomorrow. But what are you looking forward to? I know that there's a hackathon here. There are local developers who are thinking about some of the issues that we've been talking about. There are a plethora of amazing speakers on stage. What are you looking forward to over the next 2 days?
I think you say it's your first Meridian, your third Meridian. I'm between both of you. It's my second Meridian, the first one on this side of the desk. Meridian is the big venue where the Stellar ecosystem and the community gathers and strategizes and pushes our ecosystem forward. So it's the place where we see developers and the enterprises and the public policy makers get all together in one place. I'm absolutely looking forward to engaging with the folks who are building on this system, learning as much as I can, and still my early days on the Stellar side. I've been able to contribute as much as I can. I'm very much looking forward to being back here tomorrow with some news.
It's always incredible. We've gone to several different events all over the world with different ecosystems. How much the community really shows up and kind of supports at these IRL events. And we see it here again today. I think, Sam, you said there's double the attendees. Am I misquoting you?
From 2 years ago, yes, double.
The ecosystem is, if you look at the Stellar ecosystem, so the DeFi volume is up 10 times in the last year. The developer ecosystem is up 50 times, which is growing 5, 6, 8 times faster than overall blockchain industry. Definitely the ecosystem is very vibrant. And as you're saying, for a system that is so distributed, people really enjoy the opportunity to see each other in real life. And a lot of the advancements happens in these exchanges here.
All right, Jose, final question. 2 years from now, what does success look like for Stellar?
I think that we want to look at 3 things. We want to continue to do the excellent work that Stellar has done over the years on the developer side. So a very vibrant developer ecosystem measured by active developers, measured by TVL, measured by volume on real-world assets is super important for us. The second is building for extreme distribution. Enterprise and institutional adoption is very important. That's how we get to the masses. We want to make sure that our share of wallet and our share of blockchain with those large institutions continues to grow. I think obviously a big part of what we do is maintaining, with the help of the community, the code base of Stellar. So we want to continue to build, like we did with Whisk, our latest protocol upgrade and others. We want to continue to build that foundation and that infrastructure.
Amazing.
Jose, thanks so much for joining us at the desk, and I know we'll see you again right here tomorrow.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks, Jose.
That was the President and Chief Growth Officer of the Stellar Development Foundation, Jose Fernandez de Ponte. If you are just joining us, we are coming to you live from Stellar Meridian in Rio de Janeiro, where industry leaders, innovators, builders, and policymakers are meeting to shape the financial future. Now, let's take a look at what's trending in the news this morning. All right, our first story here is all about Metaplanet. Metaplanet has established 2 subsidiaries, one in Japan and one in the US, to expand its Bitcoin-related operations. The largest Bitcoin treasury company in Japan also bought the Bitcoin.jp domain name as it goes all in on the largest cryptocurrency. The Bitcoin Japan subsidiary will manage Bitcoin-linked media and online platforms, while US-based Metaplanet Income will focus on income generation from Bitcoin-related financial products. The company also plans to raise 204.1 billion yen, that's worth $1.4 billion today, in an international share sale to increase its Bitcoin holdings. Metaplanet currently has a stack of 20,136 Bitcoin, with its total value at around $2.34 billion. All right, our next story, Galaxy Digital is planning to release a tokenized money market fund, according to people familiar with the matter. The Galaxy Fund, which will debut in the coming months, will ultimately be available on the Ethereum, Solana, and Stellar blockchains, with Anchorage Digital as the custodian. Galaxy Digital is aiming to bring a crypto-native twist to tokenized fund offerings led by TradFi players such as BlackRock and Franklin Templeton. BlackRock's Biddle Fund, which now has a market cap of around $2.2 billion, went live on the Solana blockchain in March after launching on Ethereum. All right, I'm doing a little presentation for you guys here. Our last story, Brazil, one of the largest economies in Latin America, is getting ready to make regulation for virtual asset service providers effective by 2026. According to local reports, authorities are finalizing rules. Regulation in the region was enacted in 2022, requiring VASPs to receive approval from the central bank to operate, but the rules have not yet been fully applied. Those are your top 3 news stories for the morning. For all the latest news headlines, head on over to CoinDesk.com, or you can just continue watching Sam and I right here at the desk. Now, Sam, before we get to our next guest, that last story there, Brazil really looking at regulation by 2026, I think that ties in really well with what Jose was just talking about. Regulation is really important to continue accelerating innovation, and that's something that we've seen in the United States.
Yeah, last week I was just down in D.C., Washington, D.C., and we were having all of the different senators and congressmen and sort of regulators who were really active in the crypto space coming together for a policy and regulation event. And there's a ton of energy in the room. People are really excited about what's happening in the regulatory, and I think that what's happening in the US is really happening globally. So I think whether it's Brazil, whether it's in Asia, whether in Europe, everyone wants to sort of push this industry forward. So we're at a great time, frankly, to be in the crypto industry, because we're seeing the kind of, not necessarily like the rails coming off, right? But we're seeing the opportunity for us to be able to move forward and innovate without as much restriction. And I think that's what we needed to go from what was not a niche industry, but a kind of mid-sized industry to what really will become a very large industry.
You were in DC, I was covering that same event from home. And what was so fascinating to me is the amount of collaboration happening right now. And I do bring the conversation back to the United States, but when we travel around the world, we see a similar collaboration between the private sector and the public sector of really trying to understand each other and come to some kind of middle ground where innovation can happen within the frameworks that are being built as we go. And what a stark difference that is from just like 1 or 2 years ago, not only in the United States, but globally.
I don't think you can put it back in the box either, right? I think we're in a place where people are understanding that from a fees perspective, from a speed perspective, from a global opportunity, this is just an industry that is not going to go away. And so we are seeing traditional companies jump in hardcore, trying to figure out what's my crypto strategy. And that's happening all around the world. We're seeing it down here in Brazil, but we're also seeing that, like I said, in Europe. The US, I can't tell you the number of conversations I've had with people saying, I need to figure out what my stablecoin strategy is, what my crypto strategy is, how should I be in this industry? And talking to some of the largest companies in the world as we do, everyone's open in a way that they just weren't in 21, 22, 23. So I think this is just a remarkable time to be in our industry.
Regulation really was that catalyst, right? There were so many Web2 companies that were sitting on the sidelines waiting for some kind of movement. And it feels like the floodgates really have been opened. And while that's exciting, there's still a lot to figure out. And I know we're going to have some of those discussions at the desk later on today.
Absolutely.
Let's get to one of those discussions right now. Joining us now is Dr. Adam Lowe, the Chief Product and Innovation Officer at CompoSecure and the founder of the Arculus security platform. He applies his background in developing technology for the U.S. defense community to the challenge of securing digital assets. Hello, how are you doing?
Great, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about your background.
Sure.
U.S. defense technology, now you're working on securing digital assets. Talk to us a little bit about how you got here. Why are you so passionate about building security applications for this innovative industry?
Sure, so I've really focused on my career on keeping people safe. So whether that be the warfighter or the intelligence community and everyday people, I've spent the last decade at Compo and Arculus really in kind of core payments tech keeping people safe and transitioning that to digital assets and crypto. That really comes from just a core passion. I went back to our CEO a few years ago, said, hey, if you give me a little bit of money, I'll give us a digital business. And thankfully he listened and we created Arculus, which is the easiest to use hardware wallet in the world. And that tech is incorporated now into millions of payment cards as well. So the same card that's a Visa or MasterCard can also be your hardware passkey, can also be your hardware wallet. So that gives you lots of flexibility and the same motion that everybody knows how to do, just tap and pay.
When it comes to Arculus, at Consensus, we've seen Arculus be there and show up, and a lot of people are always sort of trying to understand the difference between, I have a hot wallet, I want to do transactions right now, and I need to be secure. You guys seem to have made that a little bit easier. So what was the insight that really drove the product?
Sure. So I think the kind of aha moment with that is that we put the UI where it belongs so that the interaction with the blockchain, the interaction with whatever you're trying to do is super easy. It's on your mobile. And we put the cryptography where it belongs, right? So all of the keys, the key generation, storage management, all of that's on a card, right? So that little chip that lives in your payment card is a cryptography engine. So we let it do what it's good at, and we let the phone do what it's good at, which is communicate with the world. We keep them separate, and they serve their functions. And that way, your keys are safe in your pocket, you're not beholden to a third-party exchange, and you're not beholden to some social login.
I want to zoom out a little bit for our audience, because when we talk about hardware wallets, I think that there's this notion out there that hardware wallet means super secure, super safe, your assets are protected. And that hasn't always been the case. I've seen folks come out on X and say, although they were using a hardware wallet, their funds weren't always safe. Can you just break that down a little bit for our audience? What are some of the security precautions you should be taking when you're operating a hardware wallet? And it doesn't have to just be Arculus.
Sure, absolutely. So first is never give your recovery phrase away. So a lot of those things you'll see on X are somebody gave their 12 or 24 recovery phrase away. And that's like handing someone your house key, right? There's nothing you can do to protect that. So no matter who asks you for that, never ever give away your recovery phrase. If somebody asks you for 2FA to log into something to help you, don't do that. So sort of those basic security tenets that you need to follow. The second is if you're on a platform, hardware or not, that's behind a social login, so you signed up with Google, you signed up with X, you signed up with whatever, make sure that account is really secure, right? Because if the only thing between you and your funds is a Google login, you should make sure that that Google login is really secure.
But Adam, you come from this through the lens of a security expert. I feel like most people are still willing to sacrifice security for convenience.
100%. And if they don't fully understand what's going on, I feel like just click until it works.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a challenge in the industry right now. So, I mean, whether it's VC or PE pressure to onboard, and make that yes. I get why people do it. But, we have, I think, a false dichotomy, right? People say like, oh, it can be easy or it can be secure. And I think if you do it right, and I think that's how we've done it, then you can be easy and secure. Because if you just keep clicking yes, then that 12th yes, when it's a scammer, is all your funds gone, right? And if you're self-custodying, it's like cash in your pocket. It's your responsibility. So while I think that you're going to see a lot of people move in that direction, I think only a percentage of them are going to do it right, and a lot of people are going to lose a lot of money. So,
and look, the way I look, like I have a child, right? I think about the amount of times that I had to be like, we don't cross the street when the light is red. And we are building safety into our lives from the moment we are born. For some reason, it feels like digital safety is an afterthought. Whereas I think our physical safety is one we take really, really, like the idea of don't talk to strangers is one that we're all taught. But people are talking to strangers every day on the internet and don't care. And to your point, someone will come along and be like, oh, I'm the help person for Coinbase. Let me help you figure out whatever. I don't know. I kind of feel like, is there a way to build security and privacy at the software layer on all sides that maybe a handshake like lets this happen, or do we really need to just educate people that the tools are out there, you just have to use them?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is absolutely education. And I think to your point, people understand that if you cross the street and you get hit by a car, it's forever. Right. I think people are used to calling a bank and having them fix it, or calling someone and trying to get them to fix it. And especially newer users in the space don't kind of understand code is law. There is no one to fix it for you. When those funds are gone, they are gone. So I think it is user education while keeping it safe and easy and helping people along their journey. And we have to understand that it's a continuum, and we have to meet people where they are, whether they're on a centralized exchange, just beginning self-custody, or bleeding edge Web3. We need to address all those use cases and keep them safe and simple and easy. So you can have that high level of security while abstracting it from the user. I don't expect anyone to know what a derivation path is, right? You can keep it easy and safe.
Here's a question for you. Sam and I are talking about increased mainstream adoption, increased institutional participation. We were just talking about stablecoins. There are big brands like Visa, MasterCard, JP Morgan Chase, all looking at what their crypto play is and how they're going to make crypto accessible to folks. Now, does that make crypto more secure or less secure if people are now holding their crypto, let's say, in their bank account rather than a hard wallet?
Sure. So I think that increased use brings increased scrutiny in a good way, right? Because when you have institutional players, Visa, MasterCard, et cetera, they're going to demand that institutional quality security. So I think overall it increases user safety. Users just need to make sure that they have that independence that they desire, and that the reason we all started in Web3 anyway, which is permissionless. And I think we forget that word, and it's very important. So I think it will bring increased security, and all of those parties can play nicely together. We have that tech on many Visa, MasterCard, Amexes out in the world, and we keep those users safe.
Adam, here at Meridian, I believe Arculus is debuting a sort of a POS terminal. Tell us a little bit about what this technology is. How does it expand opportunity for people to spend crypto?
Sure. So I was always frustrated in brick and mortar situations where you couldn't directly spend crypto, right? We have a number of wonderful cards out there where you push assets and then it gets liquidated to fiat and it goes to merchants. And I wanted to fix that. So we're debuting our point of sale terminal where you can take a card, and in that same wonderful tap and pay experience, your keys are on the card. So you tap, you sign the transaction, and the stablecoin goes in real time. So I'll show a video at my talk later today where in the same amount of time you could tap and pay with a familiar payment network, you can tap and pay and directly push USDC on Stellar and pay the merchant in real time.
Do you see in the future that certain percentage of payments are going to be on chain versus on traditional rails? Like, is there a goal that you think the industry should be looking at?
Absolutely. Anything in payments for people not in the space takes 10 to 20 years to change. It's a long tail. We still use paper checks. So here, it just cuts out a lot of middlemen and is very efficient, right? The capital is instantly there. We can instantly swap it on a DEX to yield-bearing stable, so the merchant's immediately earning money. They're not paying fees for cash to be managed. So I do think over time, you're going to see more and more of these push payments. And I find it really interesting because it's sort of going back to 1900 in a way, where you would walk in, you would pay cash, the merchant would hand you your good and you leave. Here you walk in, you hand them digital cash, you get your good, and you leave. So, it's really coming full circle, and I do think we'll see this transition over time. Because if anybody knows the traditional payments backend, it's 4 parties, and there's a lot of duct tape, and I want to make it a little bit smoother.
We always go back to what works, don't we?
I love it.
Exactly. Don't we, right? Just go back to the basics. Adam, thank you so much for joining us at the desk. Good luck with your showcase later, and we'll see you around the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
That was Dr. Adam Lowe, the Chief Product and Innovation Officer at CompoSecure and the founder of the Arculus Security Platform. We are going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
You send money to your mom back home, right? And it's not always straightforward, is it? It's a pain in the ass.
Exactly. Now try sending money to millions of people during a crisis. It is a logistical nightmare.
So tell me, is there any waking up from this nightmare?
We have access to a tool called Stellar Aid Assist.
Stellar...
Aid Assist.
Right. Aid assist.
The truth is, we're not all on the same playing field. But where there's a problem, there's a solution. Access to the digital economy is still out of reach for many. That's where builders can help. You understand that one unique problem. Let's bring balance to an imbalanced world. Your world relies on you. Who can you rely on? Stellar, where blockchain meets the real world.
Hello and welcome back to CoinDesk Live, coming to you from Stellar Meridian in Rio de Janeiro. On this live broadcast, we are exploring crypto adoption in Latin America, news-making initiatives from the Stellar ecosystem, and the tangible solutions bridging the gap between blockchain technology and real-world commerce. Our next guest is a Forbes 30 under 30 social entrepreneur who is on the front lines of global financial inclusion. The co-founder of Decaf Wallet, Rick Martin, joins us now to share how stablecoins are unlocking real economic access for everyone from remote workers to migrants. Hello.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you both.
All right, let's just lay a foundation here. Sam and I know about Decaf, but for our audience watching at home, tell us about the Decaf wallet and the impact it's been able to make.
Yeah, so sure. We call the Decaf wallet a global bank on chain that fits in your pocket. It's an app, a non-custodial wallet that looks at ramps and making stablecoins really useful in real world life.
You're a 30 under 30 with Forbes. Now, I'm hoping to be a 50 over 50. That's my goal.
I don't know, Sam. I feel
I know,
time
we got a long way to go with it.
on that one.
But what I love about that is that we have these publications recognizing the innovations that are coming through crypto and blockchain. I was so impressed last time we spoke. Decaf is really sort of normalizing the opportunity of how do you bring aid and opportunity to these different regions. Tell us about just what that journey has been like and sort of where you're at now versus where you think you want to go.
Absolutely. Well, I think we all know that this year has been a very transformational year for stablecoins and blockchain and the recognition and how it's been taken seriously. So, well, that is a big contrast to the previous 3 years before that, post-FTX, and what I would liken the kind of the shadow or the valley of death that we all went through for a little while longer.
What a way to describe it.
Yeah, it was an thing. Institutions didn't want to touch us. Regulation wasn't really there. It wasn't happening. There wasn't this momentum that we see right now. This year has been different. We've seen, the Genius Act come in. We've seen the difference in attitudes towards this space. We see it being taken not as a gambling industry anymore. We've seen it as a thing that really is a set of tools that can be used to solve real world problems. And finally, we're seeing it transform the financial system.
We talk about those real world problems. Give us maybe your favorite or a use case that really stands out in your head on how someone has been able to use the Decaf wallet to really transform the way they operate within the financial system of the region that they live in.
So this year has been a big push in institutional adoption. We saw at the start of 2025 that there was just institutions asking us, hey, we have these problems, we want to solve them. And quite frankly, it was quite shocking for us. And one of the most interesting things or trends we've seen this year was institution making bulk disbursements cross borders to the Decaf wallet. And one of the interesting sort of pilots or tests that we did was with the International Aid Society this year, and they dispersed, scholarship payments to people coming from all around the world in Rwanda, and it's really difficult. Traditionally, they would have to go to a bank, pull out a ton of cash, fly it in a bunch of backpacks, get people to line up, write Excel spreadsheets, who has it, who hasn't, not know what happens with the money once it's been given to them, and then all of a sudden, these are people that have no idea about blockchain, that are just institutions, have a real problem to solve, then they start using platforms like Decaf on blockchain to make these disbursements. People start cashing out at MoneyGram from all around the world. They don't need a bank account, and they can start making these stable coins as the disbursement tool useful. And we've seen this start to happen in government organizations, NGOs, and enterprise. So this is the big thing of 2025 that, from our perspective.
And Rick, you said something I think really valuable there, which is the idea that they don't know it's on blockchain.
Yeah.
How many of the people do you think who are using Decaf know and or really care that it is versus they're just getting a tool that they can use?
So I think the best example is, the person who led the project at International Aid Society didn't know what a stablecoin was before this year. Had no idea, didn't really care either. Just knew that blockchain or this technology could be transparent and improve efficiency and make her life easier so that she could focus on her own work rather than having to focus on paying people, getting money, and being, quite honestly, in situations where it's quite dangerous holding cash. So she looked at it from just, hey, these are a bunch of tools that can really solve my problem. Now she's learned about blockchain by necessity of her life and her context. And I think this is an interesting tool for the institutions, but then once again, the people they're sending money to don't necessarily know what crypto is or blockchain is, and they're just receiving $1, which is a stable coin. They don't really care. All they know is that they can go to a MoneyGram, they can use it and spend it, and now they can have a card and use it and spend it. Use it, for example, we have this card that's released in the wallet, which is you can now spend with Visa, or anywhere that Visa is accepted, you can spend your US dollar stablecoins. And that's just useful. People don't really know it's not, it's on blockchain or it's crypto, but it's just $1 to them, and they can spend it anywhere in the world, and they can receive it practically everywhere in the world.
I want to come back to that story you were just sharing about the scholarship disbursements. Previously, they were taking cash in backpacks. They had no idea what was going to happen. It really sounds like Decaf solved a financial issue, but it also sounds like it solved a security and a safety issue. It sounds like it would be very unsafe to be traveling with that amount of cash across borders into territory that maybe people haven't traveled to before. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so that is the standard way of getting or doing cash payments. This is not just for scholarship payments. This is for humanitarian aid. This is for any type of cash disbursement, even payments for employees in really difficult regions. And we're seeing this in lots of use cases. But essentially holding a bunch of cash in a bag is not that safe, not only for the organizers or the institutions themselves who have to pay out, but for the recipients as well, who have to receive a bunch of cash and be holding it. And they may be in places such as, Myanmar or Colombia, or where it's just not safe to do that. And actually last year, we were talking about holding cash and being shot because of holding a bunch of cash. So there are a lot of safety challenges for just cash disbursements.
I also think the world's in a crazy place right now. We can recognize the fact that there's a lot of volatility, and in the NGO space, there's a tremendous number of people who want to figure out how to help. And what I love about the work that you guys do and some of the others in the space is you're cutting out fees, you're cutting out the time it would normally take to deploy on the ground.
Yeah.
These NGOs, I think, should be seeing these products as a true lifeline and opportunity. So what's the reception been from the NGOs that you talk to?
Well, I just had conversations here at Meridian just even last night, and it's not even just non-government organizations, it's government organizations themselves and contractors. And the biggest thing is, so at the start of this year, Trump sent out a note about US aid. They were upset about two things: the lack of transparency for payments that go overseas, and then the inefficiencies in what's required to keep that transparency and to keep the auditing happening, and then also just challenges with money and people skimming things off when you have 1 million intermediaries, especially when you're dealing with cash, which is invisible essentially once it releases from their hand.
Yeah.
And so these two problems, transparency and lack of efficiency, or lack of transparency and lack of efficiency, are really what's being solved with this tool of blockchain and stablecoins. And so the reception has just been, from a practical point of view, look, we don't have a choice anymore. We have to look at this as a form of innovation. This is going to happen. We can stick our heads in the sand and protect this traditional banking system and cash delivery system all we want, but we know it's going to transform. And in fact, the Trump administration wrote in their note, the future disbursements for USAID, the remaining 18% that they have, has to be on blockchain, has to be from a system that has a proven track record, and because it changes the transparency and the efficiency of those systems.
Rick, we got to go in just a moment, but I got to ask if you're thinking about privacy in any way, because we're talking about humanitarian aid, we're talking about NGOs, and when you introduce politics into the mix, you have different political regimes that maybe have different motivations all over the world. Are you thinking about privacy, and what might we be able to expect on your roadmap when it comes to privacy?
Absolutely. There's this big balance between transparency and then also the freedom to do what you want with your money and control from certain agencies or centralized institutions. And that is a balance that we have to think about as an industry. While we can achieve all this transparency from these decentralized systems, they're still public and open. So people can view these things. So we need to start thinking about, okay, where is it correct to have privacy? And what can our industry do and think about in terms of, say, a salary payment? Hey, we don't necessarily need to know every single amount and who is this available for people to see? And what's the balance between making it private and also achieving, things like anti-terrorism and making sure that the money is not, once again, not completely untransparent and then being used for the wrong purposes. So we're in a point of time where we're actually battling with these types of innovations and practically implementing them and seeing them actually play out rather than just being theory. And I think this is the year that we really see these privacy solutions start to be implemented in real life.
Amazing. More conversations about that to happen right here at the desk, and I'm sure throughout the conference. Rick, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. Thanks
Great
for having
seeing
me.
you, Rick.
Yeah, thank you.
That was Decaf Wallet co-founder Rick Martin. All right, Sam, we are getting right into the swing of things. That privacy conversation is one that's really interesting to me because I think there is a notion out there, maybe even a little bit of a misconception, that blockchain is completely private.
Far from it.
Very far from it, very transparent.
Yes.
And so some of the conversations around how we solve for that, I think, is what's going to drive the narrative as we move into 2026.
For the last, I think now 4 or 5 months, myself and another person at CoinDesk have been hosting a series focused on privacy called Privacy in Motion. We have been talking to people all over the ecosystem about just how private this stuff is, both from a big tech perspective as well as on the blockchain. And I think people don't recognize that transparency is at the core of the blockchain. So privacy has to be built in from the get-go in order to make privacy happen, but it also requires the users to know much, just as we were talking to Adam about from Arculus. I think that's where the education still has to come, because I don't think people recognize that what you're doing with your wallet is often more exposed than what you're doing with your credit card.
Yeah.
And so how we want to balance that out, there's a lot of talk at this conference around ZK proofs and ZK technology, zero knowledge proofs. That gives opportunities for you, Jen, to say, I want this to be open because I want to get the access and benefits of membership, and I want this to be private because this is my retirement. And so trying to figure that out is going to be one that we're going to spend a lot of time, I think, in the next couple of years going over. But it's one of the more exciting areas also of the crypto space right now.
I'm glad you brought that up, because earlier on you were talking about this notion of convenience, right? And I think we have been almost trained to choose the convenient option over the maybe more difficult option that might protect more of our resources, like our data that we give up so much in Web 2. And so I feel like there's like a retraining of the mind that almost needs to happen. And I want to ask you about that, because I know as part of the privacy series you're working on, you speak to the public. And so what's general consensus for folks who are out there just living their everyday lives when it comes to their privacy? Is it something that they've just given up for convenience and they're not really sure on how to get it back?
The notion that we hear too much is that Gen Z especially has already given up the fight. And it's because of folks like Instagram and TikTok and YouTube that they've done it. They are willing to say, I get to be on my feed, talk to my friends, sell my wares, but in essence, I'm giving up all of it for the monetization of those platforms. I think we in the crypto space look differently, but we haven't yet built the sophistication needed to make that a reality. So I think we're in an opportunistic moment right now, which I think is frankly fantastic. This is where we need to be, where we can start to balance out what are the things we want to correct from the sort of Web 2 era and bring that into Web 3, while also saying self-sovereignty and ownership of data is important. Decision-making on what is exposed and what's private is mine, not the company's decision. I think it's just a fun conversation to be having, especially at a conference like this, because these are the people who are thinking about it every day.
gets even more complicated when you introduce AI into the mix. As you were talking,
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I have given away all of my biometric data just to get through the airport quicker. The privacy conversation is one that should be at the forefront
We will keep doing that.
as technology continues
Yes.
to accelerate at the pace that it is. All right, let's get to our next guest now. He is the CTO of 21X, the first EU-regulated trading and settlement infrastructure for digital assets. Mark Keegan. Hello, Mark.
Hi, pleasure to be here.
A pleasure to have you here too. Tell us about 21X for our audience watching at home. Just give us a quick overview.
Yeah, 21X, we are the first one who has obtained the DLT TSS license in Europe, enabling us to do on-chain trading and matching and settlement. So we maximize the approach. So at the end, we are really able now to have one atomic blockchain transaction where the matching happens, the price determination, and also the settlement. And all this is done within one transaction. We do not only cater for hybrid products, but also with the regulation, it's allowed now really to natively tokenize products to create native fund structures, bond structures, etc. And all this enables to have all the investors making use of a self-custodial approach. So a non-custodial approach is also supported by our market infrastructure.
Mark, you guys are here at Meridian in Rio. Tell us also what's your relationship to Stellar and other blockchains? How do you sort of engage with this industry like that?
Yeah, thanks a lot. A very good question. We just announced this week that we publicly announced a partnership with Stellar. We did start our development on Polygon because it was well known to the regulator also in Europe. But following our multi-chain approach, we then decided to integrate Stellar as a second blockchain. It's just a great fit, I think. As I said, right, we have an atomic transaction where it comes to the settlement and Stellar providing one block finality. So imagine within seconds, the entire transaction, which today takes T+2, sometimes you have discussions about T+1, it's days, we talk about one blockchain transaction. That's just amazing, and I think Stellar is a perfect fit here as a well-established layer one, with a great ecosystem, with already big institutions like Franklin Templeton, Wisdom Tree, also making use of the Stellar infrastructure.
You mentioned a multi-chain strategy there. We've been talking about security and privacy here at the desk. Are there any security challenges that are introduced as you expand the amount of chains that your products are offered on?
Well, that's a good question. It's always a balance. On the one hand, we want to make use of the possibility and the specifics of each protocol. On the other hand, we need to offer the same functionality, same behavior, and also we've chosen a concept which is quite integrated in the license approach we have. So we need to bring all this together. Still, security is a very important point for us, and I think so far we always found very good solutions and also making it available for both of the protocols in a good form and matter.
I want to talk about your central limit order book. So you built that on Stellar. What were the sort of technical needs you required to sort of make that work, and how did you work with the Stellar team to bring that on chain?
That's a very good question. So Stellar already has integrated a central limit order book. We analyzed this. Unfortunately, we couldn't use this because being a fully regulated financial institute, there are way more requirements we need to fulfill, like volatility management and so on and so forth. So that was one of the biggest challenge. At the end, it's not only a central limit order book. It has way more functionalities coming with the regulation. And thus, we have a very high complexity for the smart contracts. And we had a good and great exchange and collaboration with the Stellar team there, supporting us in optimizing the system in terms of gas consumption, storage point of view, in these kind of questions, and how to split up the smart contracts and how to set up the architecture to really enable to have all features implemented.
You know, becoming regulated under MiCA is not an easy feat. I know that there's a long process. It is a stringent process. Are you looking at becoming regulated in any other regions? You know, we're sitting here in Latin America now. Talk to us about what your regulatory journey looks like.
Yeah, that was, believe me, that was the journey. It's not MiCA, it's a DLT regime, but no worries at all. Yeah, everybody said 1.5 years in Europe is pretty fast.
Yeah.
As a startup, it felt horrible long. Yes, there is a huge interest for a global expansion, and also we want to tackle further markets. We are in great discussions also there with other jurisdictions. Of course, now also the US is pretty much interesting. And I think Europe had the most advanced regulation. And we see a huge and very strong interest from other regulators all over the world to learn from it and to adapt to it. And I'm pretty sure we also will do our next step there accordingly to really then have a global offering.
Mark, you mentioned the regulatory framework or positioning in Europe. We're here again in LATAM, one of the top markets in terms of growth and adoption. The US is certainly having a moment under the current administration. What's the vibe in Europe right now around crypto? Does it feel like it is keeping in ahead of the pace? Is there a desire to sort of try to get even more business, like really being focused on the European market? What's the feeling of crypto in that market right now?
Well, I think it's overall, I would not only say it's a Europe trend, but overall we see a lot of interest. Almost everybody, every institution now is again into the topic, having their own projects, and that's really visible. Still, I feel like we had a very good approach with the first set of regulation. We could even increase this and use the momentum even more. That's something we also work on closely with regulators and the European Union and Commission there to drive the topic further and to even expand the possibilities.
Sam and I are going to take a look at some data later on in the show, and it looks at crypto adoption in different regions. Asia Pacific and Latin America are really driving the globe when it comes to crypto adoption, with Europe falling a little bit further behind. Talk to us a little bit about why you think that is, and what it's going to really take to accelerate that growth in Europe, if we look even outside of regulation.
Well, as a European, most likely I need to say
You don't need to say anything.
We want to make things, we want to have them well defined and a pretty well fitting rule set. So we first of all create proper rules and then we do this. And most likely other parts of the world are more like doing something first, trying it out. And of course, this is typically a bit faster than, first of all, thinking about it carefully to really have a solution which takes care of protection of the investors, of the individuals, all these parts, and then move a bit slower. I would say that's part of Europe.
Okay, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, Mark, last question. Just, there's so many amazing people here, from developers, investors, builders. What are the types of conversations you want to have at Meridian?
Well, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I'm going to have a few meetings out there. I think it's just a great opportunity again to talk to issuers. The real world asset topic is a very hot topic, so I'm looking forward to these kind of conversations, building the ecosystem, right? Because we are an open ecosystem infrastructure provider. For us, it's just, we don't drive the adoption alone. Yeah. It's not only 21x. It's really, we need to have the ecosystem. We need to have great products. We need to integrate with order flow providers to have distribution capabilities. So really building the ecosystem and connecting all the players needed. And yeah, I'm pretty sure there will be a lot of people around here to have great conversation about this topic.
Mark, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
That was 21x Chief Technology Officer, Mark Hegan. All right, Sam, we are getting the ball rolling there.
We're in it.
What Mark was just saying was really interesting. It also comes down to culture when it comes to adoption and how things have been done for a really long time. And, we were talking about earlier, like, why break something that already works? And it feels like that might be a little bit of the vibe over in Europe.
I think Europe is a really interesting market. I think it's always been very sophisticated. Yes. It's one of the oldest in the financial space. And I think Europe is one that takes its time. And I think that's okay, actually. I think we don't want everything happening in our business at break speed. And I think actually what makes us all better is the balance, that you can have a market that's like full degen over here, and then you can have one that's very conservative, and you always, in the end, have to meet in the middle. So I actually really like the approach that's happening within Europe because of that, because I think, to your point earlier when we talked about Mika, like they push regulation in a way that I think has helped stabilize what regulation should be. Because in the end, the last thing we all want is everyday investors, getting wrecked, and we need some protections in place. Some folks in the crypto space are really here just for transaction volume, just for fees, just for the number go up. But for us to be taken seriously, we have to, especially in things like real world assets, we have to have a more sophisticated approach. So I actually look to Europe for that approach.
That's what I love about doing these broadcasts from all over the world and coming to events like this. We get to speak to people from all over the world, hear about different perspectives, hear about how it's being done in different parts of the world, so we can get a real broad view of what's going on in this space as everyone innovates at different speeds.
And Jed, if only there was someone to talk about stablecoins around the world.
Sam is killing it at the transitions today. Let's get to our next guest. He is a storyteller that is traveling the globe to document the real-world impact of blockchain technology. As the founder of The Flip, he is producing a new documentary series focused on stablecoin adoption at the last mile, bringing to life the stories of how people from all around the globe are using this technology to solve everyday problems. Justin Norman, welcome.
Thank you. I'm very impressed with that transition and just how you guys are doing this all morning in general.
That means so much to come from a filmmaker like yourself.
If you have any tips, by the way.
Well, everything in film, everything is edited, so it's not live, right? It makes it much easier, in my opinion. Yeah.
Do you think I need a key light over here is the real question?
The lighting I use, my production team tells me what to do. You know?
Okay, Sam, you look great.
Thank you.
Sam,
That's all that
matters.
Yes,
Justin, you look great.
Thank you.
Let's get into the conversation now. I love that you are traveling around the world and talking to people about stablecoins. Sam and I spoke very briefly about how it's impacting folks. Largely in the developing world where the financial system has forgotten about a lot of people. Talk to us a little bit about what you're learning as you produce these stories.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in stablecoins in the developing market context in particular, just because those are the problems, those are the markets where there's like real problems to solve, right? I think even though now kind of after the Genius Act in the US, people are kind of understanding what stablecoins could be good for in the US, it's very obvious in places like Argentina or Bolivia or Nigeria or now Nepal even, right? The role that stablecoins are playing and like what the job to be done is. And, but I don't think that the conditions on the ground are well understood, right? So people will say Argentina hyperinflation, but if we really want to solve problems in Argentina with stablecoins, we really need to understand the context. And that's, I think, one of the main things that I'm learning is like, even though stablecoins are this kind of default global technology, the way in which they're being adopted and used and spent and the problems that they're solving can be vastly different market by market as well. So it really does take this like nuanced, like bottom-up approach to understand how it's going to solve problems depending on the market you're in.
Let's stick in Argentina for just a second. Explain that context, because that's a story we hear a lot in this industry about how crypto is solving problems for folks in Argentina, but we don't really get to dive into it deeper.
So I'm going to be a little bit maybe counterintuitive here. Everyone talks about Argentina and hyperinflation, right? But when you spend time on the ground and you ask why are people using stablecoins or why do they prefer dollars in the first case, hyperinflation is maybe the third thing on the list. They'll say like taxes and government overreach. There's a long history of, I think, dollar preference as a result of lack of trust and taxation and different things like that. And stablecoins are now playing a role, especially in helping move money across borders in the Argentinian context. But as a result of this narrative, when I was going to Argentina, I had this expectation that I'd see much more visible stablecoin adoption, like prices in USDT or merchants accepting. And you don't really see that much of that. Like it feels like a regular economy. People are all spending in pesos. If they're spending in USDT or USDC, they're off-ramping into pesos. They're kind of doing Mercado Pago QR, right? And so I think that that's a good example of like, I went with this expectation that it would be more on-chain than any other place I went to, and I actually left thinking that the future is more of this entanglement and intertwined stablecoin fiat, being able to move between them a lot easier and cheaper. Even though we're telling the story of Argentina is the most on chain and the best place for stablecoin adoption, obviously the actual reality is a lot more nuanced and complex than that.
Justin, when I think about great documentaries, I think about that there's often a tension there. I think about that you have a sort of a hero and villain moment. What's the real sort of, what's the friction you're running into that you're seeing these communities trying to overcome?
Yeah. So I think it depends also on what market we're talking about. In Argentina, it's actually this tension between like formal and informal, right? So there's this whole parallel market that people operate in because they have to, right? Because the history of Argentina, monetary policy and taxation has meant that you have to reside over here, or else like your business isn't going to survive. Like people were saying to me, 30% of the informal, 30% of the economy, if they didn't operate informally, they couldn't exist in Argentina, right? And they don't want to operate informally, but like there's a reason why the parallel market exists and it thrives, and there's this tension between formal and informal, this like really gray line between legal and illegal also, I think, that maybe kind of resonates with stablecoins and crypto adoption as well. In a place like Bolivia, I was in Argentina a couple weeks ago, I was in Bolivia about a week and a half ago. In Bolivia, it's like dollar access for survival. There's massive dollar shortages in Bolivia right now. I met with like a 30-year importer, a 30-year-old business that's importing agricultural products. They have to use stablecoins in order just to continue their business and to survive, right? So this tension between, we're this regular, formal, family-owned business, and now we're learning how to adopt this new technology. It's actually like kind of a lifesaver for us. That tension is an interesting one as well. And there's more that I can do, but those are two recently that come to mind.
You talk about that blurry line between legal and illegal, especially in Argentina. I was there last year for another event, another broadcast like this one. And I noticed the same thing you did. A lot of folks were using stablecoins, but no one was talking about it. And it almost felt like this like dark underbelly.
Yeah.
But everyone was participating in it.
Yeah. And I would say that it's not just like stablecoin adoption as this dark underbelly, but it's this entire parallel market of dollars and cash that is, in Argentina, the second most amount of physical dollars in circulation outside of the US are in Argentina, right? And so there's this entire thing that stablecoins are now plugging into that's not just about that. But I think it's like, if you, for example, during a period of hyperinflation chose to sell your pesos into dollars, you couldn't do that through the bank because either the bank didn't give you access or because the parallel rate was better, right? So you chose to use the informal market, and then your money exists outside of the system, which a lot of people want. If you then wanted to put that back into the bank, which a lot of people don't want to do because they don't trust banks, but let's say you wanted to, and then you wanted to participate in the formal system again, you have to kind of show how did you earn these dollars, right? And you can't do that because you bought them informally. And so that's this idea about this tension is like, you might have run a legitimate business, earned in pesos, moved your money out, if you want to move it back in, right? Like that tension of like, is that money laundering? Like, I don't know if it is, right? But there's like a very legitimate reason why people are participating in this parallel economy. And I think also like as an American, I lived in South Africa for 10 years and have traveled and spent a lot of time in East and West Africa. I think that sort of tension of like what looks sketchy to like the West is often just business as usual or how you have to operate in some of these markets. I don't think that that's very well understood. I don't know if it's legal or not. I don't know if Argentinians think it's legal or not. They just say, I don't have a choice, right?
I think that's a fascinating topic. It also makes me wonder if, like, we've already said stablecoins 95 times since we started this broadcast, but that's like, I mean, it makes me feel like we're talking about SMTP or like MP4s when we talk about music. I wonder if there's almost a brand change that has to happen on the ground for people just to say, no, it's just money.
Yeah.
Is there any insight you have in that?
I would agree. Yeah. I mean, I walked around Argentina and asked people if they knew what stablecoins were, and they said no. And then I said USDT, and some said, oh, yeah. But I do think it's like, yeah, I mean, thinking about it as just money. I was in another just anecdote. I was in the airport in Santa Cruz, Bolivia, and the duty-free shop had all of the prices in USDT, but they didn't accept USDT.
Oh.
So I don't know why, but for some reason, maybe they wanted to and they couldn't figure out merchant acceptance. But yeah, I guess they're just kind of thinking about, like in some markets, they do kind of think interchangeably about like USDT, USD, it's the same thing. In that store, they only accepted dollars in cash or Zelle, interestingly enough. So I guess they had a US bank account. But I agree with you, right? Like, it's the way in which it's being utilized in many of these markets is interchangeable with cash, and in some ways is just a more like readily used version of cash. You can do more with it, and that I think is what the future should look like. Is just using it for the same reasons why you might use cash, but you can do a lot more with it than you can do with cash.
Justin, thanks so much for joining us at the desk. I'm sure we'll see you around and we'll catch up on the next episode.
Yes, thanks so much.
Thanks, Justin.
That was the Flip founder, Justin Norman. We are going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Sending money around the world is still too hard for too many. But if ideas are borderless, opportunity should be too. That's where builders can help. You understand that one unique problem. Let's bring balance to an imbalanced world. Your world relies on you. Who can you rely on? Stellar, where blockchain meets the real world. The truth is, we're not all on the same playing field.
Puedo mandarle dinero a mi familia, pero quién sabe cuánto llegará. Як ми відновимося? Як захистимо їхнє майбутнє?
كلما ادخرت ازداد شعوري بعدم الأمان. That's where builders can help. You understand that one unique problem. Let's bring balance to an imbalanced world. Stellar, where blockchain meets the real world.
Hello and welcome back to CoinDesk Live. We are coming to you from Stellar Meridian 2025 in Rio de Janeiro. Now, we've talked a ton about stablecoins today. I would say we should put a stablecoin message counter on the screen, but I don't think we have the technical capacity to do that. Sam, in our last conversation, we were talking a lot about USDT. And I just went to a Tether event in New York City. And there was a piece of data that Tether shared that was kind of staggering to me. More than 60% of people who are using Tether around the world do not interact with any other crypto. They are just using USDT. They are just using it to preserve their wealth and to interact, much like how Justin was just telling us. When I tell you that, I mean, is that surprising to you?
It's not. Mm-hmm. And again, I think that's what we need.
Yeah.
I don't, this is part of the reason I asked that question to Justin. I think the everyday person does not need to know the technology.
Of course.
And USDT and USDC and PYUSD and USAT now, I mean, all of it it's very business language, but the everyday person out here on the streets in Brazil who just wants to pay for their meal, just wants to get paid for their service, they just want to know that they have something that they can utilize that is spendable in an easy way, and which we didn't get to talk about with Justin, we ran out of time, but a lot of the traditional ways people would pay digitally meant someone kept stepping on the money and taking percentages over and over and over.
Exactly.
We see that in India quite a bit. So I think there's also, imagine that you got, a 10% bump in your pay because you just don't have to pay as many fees anymore to convert. And I think that's where when Paulo, says 60% of the world, this is the only crypto that they utilize, I think that makes sense. And I think we're going to see that across a lot of different crypto ecosystems. And more, you will then have, I'm going to send you something, it's going to auto-convert, and it's going to be in your currency, which is the way money should work. When we talk about programmable money, this is the vision. And there probably is no more forward-thinking company at the moment, or project at the moment, than Tether doing this. But, we're here at Meridian. Stellar was born to be a payments blockchain. It is, it's these types of people who are going to revolutionize the future, and it's the one that I'm most excited about.
Yeah, the number was more than 60%. I can't remember the exact number now. And just to build on what you're saying, Sam, I was just saying, I spent some time in South Africa, and I think the steps of innovation when it comes to fintech applications that solve this peer-to-peer payment challenge. It solves the challenge of paying a merchant for some goods or paying your friend for something that you've received. It's just different than what we have experienced in North America. The peer-to-peer payment idea, I think, is more evolved in some of these communities that we've been talking about than it is in the US and Canada because of just the different use cases.
Well, a year ago, I spoke to an up-and-coming actor
Okay.
named Idris Elba.
You're just killing it. You're killing it with the transitions.
And he had launched a project that was all about exactly what you're talking about. And I would say I'm not the expert at this, but we do have someone sitting with us at the desk who is one of those experts. Let's go to him.
Let's get to our next guest right now. He is building a payment solution for thousands of businesses as the former CEO of Stripe-owned Paystack in Ghana. Now he's tackling one of the biggest challenges for Africa's creator economy, getting paid across borders. As the leader of Akuna Wallet, please welcome Kwejo Owusu Ajiman. Hey, KJ.
Hi.
Did you like that transition that Sam
loved
did?
it so much.
It was so good.
I think you were on
right?
stage last year also, no?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
I wasn't there, yeah.
All right, KJ, talk to us about the creator economy in Africa. What does that look like? And what are some of the challenges that creators face, especially when it comes to getting paid from brands that maybe might not be sitting where they are?
Exactly. So look, the creator economy in Africa is probably one of the biggest opportunities right now. The population of Africa is 1.4 billion today, right? And the number of people who are under 25 is like 60%. So the population is young, is digital first, and we're creating more content than ever before. Now, the challenge with getting paid is we still have to rely on global platforms, right, to distribute the content. And the content is accessible everywhere. It's global, it's instant, but the payments are not always the same, right? So if you're sitting in Ghana, where I'm from, or from other African countries, you're distributing your content, but your payments don't come in as quick, right? Now, for the ones that even come quick, you might have to stitch a couple of solutions and services just to get paid. And by the time it hits you, you might be getting hit on the FX side, converting to local currency, and the fees in between. There's so many middlemen, which is what birthed the project that we're working on.
And KJ, when I was talking to Idris, he mentioned two sides of it. One is you might have an amazing creator in Africa who can't even participate in the YouTube ecosystem because they can't get a bank account, and this really gives them that opportunity to get paid. In addition, there might be a film crew that comes in that wants to film, and the sound person or the lighting person also needs to get paid. So there's both the business-to-business angle and there's the business-to-consumer angle. So can you tell us a little bit more about how it works?
Yeah, exactly. So those are two use cases that are really strong, and that's where we're starting from. First things first is what exists already. We need to give all African creators access to it, right? So we're giving you a virtual USD account that puts you at par with any creator anywhere in the world. You can put those account details on any platform and get paid, just like others would globally. The second part is we see there's a lot of production coming into Africa, right? Films, documentaries, and the like, and paying them is going to come from global sources. And the bridge into the local bank account is not quite seamless, which is another strong use case we're actually testing in a couple of weeks. Right? We have a film crew coming down to do a film, and they're using only local crew, local people, and they're going to be paying through stablecoins through the Akuna wallet.
Talk to me about how it works for a creator. Give me a real concrete use case of someone who's using the Akuna wallet to get paid.
Yeah. So a good friend of mine is an international DJ and artist, music producer. He plays in shows all over the world. His music is distributed on global platforms. But what happens is when he gets booked for a show and he flies to the US or wherever, they're supposed to send him his payments, but he doesn't have a US account, right? So he's been leveraging his cousin's US account to get paid, right? That's the first bottleneck. Now, what happens if his cousin doesn't send him the money, right? Exactly. So, So all of these frictions are not, and at scale, it becomes a problem because you, as a creator, you are your business for people like him, right? And he's moving around the world. He needs to monetize and get his cash flow going because he needs to turn that around and grow and scale, right? So what we're doing is, as if you go to the App Store, you download the Akuna wallet, instantly you go through KYC, we give you a dollar account, right? With router number, account number, bank details. Whenever you're paid into there, it turns into digital dollars, stablecoins, which you can spend freely anywhere with your debit card or directly P2P for free.
Is there any mention of stablecoins anywhere in this process?
There's no mention of stablecoins, right? Yeah.
And I mean, and you're starting in Ghana, but I think the idea is how do we then sort of spread to more of Africa and probably other parts of the world? What's the reception been?
Yeah, no, it's been amazing. So we spent the last probably over a year and a half to 2 years going to different African countries. There's 54 countries with similar problems, right? But then the creation and the creator economy is booming, right? We're seeing more and more people making stuff, creating stuff, right? So we realized that this is not a Ghana solution. This is an Africa-wide solution. In Ghana, we started because we have strong ties to Ghana. Myself, Idris Elba, and others. And the creator economy in Ghana is actually growing quite quick. So we realized that the last piece was having strong relations with the regulator, who is really a strong partner for us in rolling this out.
You also are killing it with the transitions. I was going to ask about that regulation next. All right. You recently received approval from the Bank of Ghana, right? Talk to us about that process, what it looked like. And I know that there's a fintech and innovation sandbox. What does it mean to participate in that?
Yeah, so for us, that's a huge signal because trust is the number one thing for us. The product is trust, as we say internally. And the central bank has been an advocate for innovation for the last, couple of years. And they really know that tech is really what's going to drive their financial inclusion goals. So I've been lucky to witness that on my previous roles and build certain solutions that have broadened market access for African businesses. And next goal is to do the same for creators. So in the sandbox, the process is quite rigorous, but it's the right process. And we're going to stress test your product, your innovation, your goals against all the global standards like AML, CFT, and all things of that sort to make sure it's robust. And when you come out on the other end, it's a solution that's ready for the market.
I know you're focused on the creator economy, but I can imagine there's so many different sectors that would look forward to utilizing this technology. What are some of your targets?
So, our target is the creator economy because we really are focusing on where we have a clear line of sight and opportunity there. But we do know that it cuts across pretty much any other industry that's trying to get paid quickly, simply, cheaper, right? But for now, we're focusing on creator economy. Starting in Ghana, we're going to look at all the other African countries from next year.
The previous project you worked on, which I mentioned in my intro, was more focused on businesses. Right now, you're focused on creators. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about how you differentiate yourself, how you can ensure that you're going to get more creators in your ecosystem and they don't go to an app like that because they may consider themselves a business as well.
Yeah, no, I think the goal is to get creators paid, right? And hopefully we are going to drive that and be at the forefront. But if there are others doing the exact same thing as we do, and they're doing it well, that's great for the ecosystem. So I think overall it's a win if there are more people doing what we're doing. But we think we have a right strategy and we'll be a market leader, right? What I was doing previously was focus on businesses, like you said, and that's how doing that for close to half a decade is how we discovered this problem area and then its potential, right? So now all guns blazing towards the creator economy.
KJ, Africa has always been very receptive to crypto in a lot of different ways. What do you think it is about maybe the brokenness of the system that made it easier for the everyday African to say, hey, this is something I need?
Yeah, so I think the proof is in the action, right? So just like the apps like WhatsApp have hundreds of millions of people using it in Africa compared to developed countries. And that's because when you send a message, it goes, right? They don't need to know how it works behind the scenes, whatever tech is behind it. And I guess crypto did the exact same thing for Africans who are trying to move money around or trying to receive money. I just want to get my money, and it came, right? And so that proof of reality is what has spurred on growth for crypto in Africa.
But do you think that also being, you mentioned a very digital first nation, that almost that they were trained in that region, unlike, in the US, we have a bank on every corner. There's almost too much of it, right? Where you are, without having that opportunity, it creates necessity, it creates an opportunity for someone else to come in and say, let's reinvent this. Is that?
Yeah, no, 100%, that's true.
Yeah.
Most of us were born in the era of mobile money and mobile payments. Yeah. We've had instant payments for more than half my life, right? And most of the people who were born in the last 2 decades, all they've known is digital, because they weren't born, like you said, with banking systems that were global and established. These new systems that came the last 2 decades is all they know, right? So it makes it easier for them to adopt newer, innovative things like crypto.
We're sitting here in Brazil at Stellar Meridian. What do you think LATAM can learn from the innovation that's happening in Africa?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting question. I look at it more like, what can I, as an African, learn from LATAM? Because I see some of the apps, and I've been interacting with people here. Pix is super interesting in terms of what they're doing at scale. The fragmentation of Africa is a challenge, but also an opportunity, because all the 54 countries, so many different currencies, so many different central banks, and it's difficult to have a super app to cut across. But I think LATAM kind of has more integration than we do. So that's a big thing that I want to tap into here.
Yeah, I guess, so with that lens, when you're, walking the show floor, are you looking to talk to folks who want to invest with you guys in Africa? Are you looking to partner on technologies? What sort of is success for Meridian?
Yeah, so for us, Meridian, we're trying to get the word out there for what we're doing, and we're open to partnerships, right? Payments in itself is a partnership business. So we're looking for who aligns with our goals on the continent and how there's synergy between and what can we do.
KJ, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you around the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you, KJ.
All right, that was Akuna Wallet Managing Director Kwejo Owusu Ajiman. All right, let's now take a look at the chart of the day. Latin America is cementing its position as a global cryptocurrency powerhouse with on-chain adoption, there's the chart, growing by a staggering 63% in the past 12 months, ending in June 2025. The data comes from the 6th annual Chainalysis Global Crypto Adoption Index released this month, which reveals a significant shift in momentum towards the global south. The report highlights growing on-the-ground utility of crypto in Latin America. We've been talking about that a lot today, placing the region at the forefront of a worldwide trend. For context, the Asia-Pacific region emerged as the fastest growing overall, seeing a 69% year-over-year increase from June 2024 to 2025, with the total transaction volume growing from 1.4 trillion to 2.36 trillion. Now, while traditional markets in North America and Europe continue to dominate total volume, the most dynamic growth is clearly happening in emerging economies. As this global trend continues, be sure to watch CoinDesk's live coverage of Korea Blockchain Week. Sam and I will be there next week. We'll be covering what's going on in the Asia-Pacific region, just like we are today in LATAM. Sam, that's not surprising given the conversations that we've been having today.
No, I think, I think Latin America is one of the most exciting markets in crypto. Meridian has always proved that out when we've been here. We've had so many good conversations with people who are building for that market. Asia Pacific, we have the Consensus event in Hong Kong, so we got to see it firsthand earlier this year. We'll be back again in February. I think that when we walk, when we were talking a bit with KJ, like when we're in New York and doing our daily lives, we don't need this.
Yeah.
It's great to be able to have it, but it's really easy to say, oh, maybe I'll keep a little bit of Bitcoin because I want to see where it goes and it'll be a store of value. There are so many regions that don't have sophisticated financial apps that we have to figure out ways to bring the sort of financial opportunity that we get to exist with every day to a global market. And I just think that there's such an opportunity for us to rewrite the rules now. And it's at events like this that we always get to talk to the people who are building that future, which is just super exciting.
Well, it brings me back to, outside of North America, it feels like stablecoins are crypto. And it takes on a whole different meaning, right? Like coming back to that number from that Tether event, more than 60% of people who have stablecoins in their wallet are not interacting with any other crypto. It just takes on a different meaning. It really is for people who want to store their wealth in maybe a different way than we talk about it when we talk about Bitcoin, and who want to just transact easily. And for me, that brings me back to like the Bitcoin white paper and the original ethos of crypto.
Yeah, I think there's two killer use cases here. I think one is realizing value, which happens with Bitcoin, but really everyone has been talking about payments, transactions.
Totally.
As the real use case. It's the only way this becomes something. And we were never going to get it on speculative currencies. And that's totally fine that there are a lot of speculative currencies in the crypto space. But the innovation around stable currencies that have been now going on 10 years old is something that is going to transform finance as a whole. I cannot imagine we are sitting here 10 years from now and not looking back at this moment and saying, we saw it happening.
Yeah.
To me, I'm just going to say there may be no better person to talk about this evolution than our next guest from Stellar.
Well, we are going to get to our next guest in just a second, but I want to add a little bit of context there.
Please.
When I say that, it reminds me of the Bitcoin white paper, that was really built out of the financial crisis. It really was about peer-to-peer transactions. It really was about a lot of the things we're talking here today in the context of stablecoins. And it reminds me of our CoinDesk Spotlight episode we did with Kathy Wood, who said, when they originally set their Bitcoin target, it was because they thought that in many regions like this one, Bitcoin was going to solve this problem. But stablecoins is doing it now. And so It almost feels like, stablecoins has offered the solution that we've wanted in this industry for a really long time, and Bitcoin has taken a little bit of a different path. All right, let's get to our next guest now. He's at the center. Okay. Our next guest now is going to talk about privacy. We're changing things up here on our live stream. We are live. It's live TV, guys. Our next guest is Stellar Development Foundation CPO Tomer Weller. Hey, Tomer.
Hey, how's it going? Jen and Sam, I feel like you're everywhere that I go.
That's all that matters.
Yes.
Well, I think that that's so exciting. You're everywhere that we go. We all have
honored.
really good lives.
We do, yes, yes.
Okay. One piece of this conference that we haven't yet spoken about today is the hackathon that's happening here at Stellar Meridian. As the Chief Product Officer, talk to us a little bit about what's going on there, what kind of projects are bubbling up.
Sure. I think the most exciting thing from a developer's perspective is smart contracts that went live last year. And so what we're seeing is a lot of innovation in that space. A core theme of this hackathon was composability. So how can developers, rather than build something from scratch, work with the existing protocols on the network, build on top of them, be like a force multiplier? We've seen the most hackers we've ever seen in a Stellar hackathon. Close to 500 hackers showed up here in this amazing location of the Copacabana Palace in Rio. And they were working 48 hours straight. I showed up at 2 a.m. People were still hacking, asking like hardcore, Rust technical questions. And so specifically, the ecosystem in Brazil is amazing. We have an amazing Stellar community here. A lot of great engineers and hackers that are super hungry to build. And so I'm really happy that we did it this year, and we've got a lot of traction. And tomorrow we're going to announce the winners in the hackathon.
Are they local hackers?
Most of them are locals, yes. The vast majority were local, yeah.
Tomer, Jen set it up with the conversation of privacy. And I think that there is a problem happening right now, which is we as a community of humans have given up privacy almost completely for the convenience. Jen mentioned, we log on to our flight by walking up to a kiosk. It knows our face and says, you're in seat 14F. But we don't talk about what happens when that system now knows who we are and has our biometrics. We don't talk about what's going on in our phones. We also don't talk about the fact that blockchains are often open and transparent. And so I could see an opportunity where someone says, oh, look, this person just received a tremendous amount of Ethereum.
Yeah.
And now I want to target them. So as someone who really thinks about product, how do we build privacy in at the foundational layer that also allows us to live by the ethos of decentralization in crypto?
Yeah, I think it's it's not an easy question. We're dealing with it a lot these days. And, you're right, definitely. What we're seeing is that the first wave of crypto adoption didn't care too much about privacy, right? And so people are transacting on public networks. And we have to remember that this openness of a public blockchain has proved to be a good thing in terms of verifiability, auditability. Like we actually, this is a financial system that you can go on a block explorer and actually audit, right? And that's important. And so the question is, how do we bring privacy while preserving the benefits that we get from an open system? And so our approach is, we still believe that the foundational layer needs to be open and transparent, and then introduce privacy at the application layer, so protocols built on top of it. So the way that we see this is, you have this kind of like public ocean and then islands of privacy. And the truth is that, transparency has like one flavor, it's public or not public. privacy has many different permutations, almost endless, right? And you can think about different ways to implement privacy, and you can think about different guarantees. And the reality of it is that we need to think about compliance because in order to actually build something at scale that gets adopted by regulated entities, we need to have a really good story for compliance. Now, this is a challenge because no one has actually defined what the fuck is compliance in blockchains, right? In privacy and blockchains. And so we're taking a very first principles approach. We're working on building a set of both building blocks around cryptography, but also specific payment protocols, private payment protocols. And we're building in administrative functionalities so that the operator of the pool can be in compliance with the set of with their risk parameters and the jurisdiction that they operate in. And so we're seeing this as very kind of like configurable and opt-in. I don't think it's one size fits all. And I think that a lot of blockchains that are kind of like implementing or enshrining like this one specific type of privacy, I don't think that it's going to actually hold water. And I think that we need to think about it much more holistically.
Distill that down for us. I mean, what does it mean to have different privacy layers for people who are just, interacting in crypto now? They know it's completely transparent. What does it mean to introduce different privacy layers through things like zero knowledge proofs? How does that change how they interact?
Yeah, so hopefully from the end user perspective, they don't need to know about this, right? The people that we want to give privacy to are exactly the people that shouldn't have any idea how these things work behind the scenes. So from their perspective, it's going to be a simple payment, right? And so, when I'm talking about like different layers or different privacy solutions, you can look at something like we're working on a confidential tokens project. We're also working with the Confidential Token Association, which are OpenZeppelin, Zama, Inco, on actually defining a standard for that. Now, this is a protocol that basically encrypts your balances and your transfer amounts. Which is great because when I get my payroll, when I get my paycheck, I don't want everyone to know how much money I make. If you are a merchant accepting payments, you don't want your competitors to know exactly your cash flow, right? And so I think a lot of the enterprise-related use cases, this is very good. Still doesn't necessarily solve the issue of kind of like disclosing the actual transacting parties. And so for that, there's another project we're working on together with Nethermind. That's a private payments protocol based on the privacy pools paper that came out by Vitalik a couple of years ago and his collaborators. And so we're working with them on implementing that. And all of these things have their own basically like audit tools. So you can do selective disclosure, you can have a centralized auditor. That's also like a question. Who is the auditor? Is it the asset issuer? Is it like a trusted third party? Is it the regulator? Are we giving the federal government the keys? Maybe, I don't know. We need to figure these things out. And that's what I mean by saying like there's all these like different permutations of privacy.
Tomer, we all work for a financial company of one sort or another. In this hotel, beautiful hotel in Rio, I connect to the Wi-Fi. It doesn't even ask me my name. It just says connect.
Yeah.
I had to think whether I wanted to do this for a while, just with the realities of the job that we're in. We know that ZK infrastructure is coming to Stellar. I can't have it come soon enough for me to feel comfortable. Where do you think we are in the ZK arc?
Argumentatively, I actually think that, at least in the payment space, I think there's a lot of like layers of how you think about ZK. I think at least in the payment space, there hasn't been that much change in the last few years. Like you look at something like Zcash, which is an amazing protocol. I'm a big fan of Zcash.
Yeah.
Like not a lot has changed in the tech in terms of like new private payments protocols. The things that have changed are how do we think about the auditability, how do we think about disclosure, and how do we actually operate these things. I do think in terms of ZK, there's there are kind of like higher level ZK building blocks like ZK VMs. We're actually working with Boundless and with Nethermind again on bringing the risk zero verifier to Stellar. They're talking about this project tomorrow, very exciting. And the cool thing there is that ZK is actually not that approachable these days, right? It's very difficult to actually write a ZK program. Yeah. The ZK VMs, help real, regular developers use regular programming languages like Rust to write and be able to prove on public blockchains this. And then you can think about much more expressivity, and people can come up with much more than just payments for ZK. So I think we're getting there. I would say that in terms of actual private payments, we're not quite there with ZK VMs yet. They're going to argue that they are, and then we might need to do a little debate around that. I think that the amount of compute you need in order to make ZK VMs fully functional is a lot, which is why you're seeing all the prover networks that are coming, both from Boundless and from Succinct. And so for privacy, would you rather have device side proving, because you don't want to send your information to a third party, because that kind of goes against the idea of privacy. And so we've got a long way to go, but I'm very excited about ZK. Also excited about FHE, fully homomorphic encryption, which we're seeing becoming more and more mainstream. Still, the throughput is not that great. It's very complicated to actually run these things, but we're getting there. And so we're putting a lot of effort into ZK. We're bringing domain-specific languages to support Stellar. We're working on ZK VMs. We're building more crypto primitives into the Stellar protocol. More crypto pairing friendly elliptic curves, hash functions that are ZK friendly, homomorphic encryption, like I said. And so we're building all the building blocks. The idea is that you should be able to come to Stellar. Stellar will be the friendliest network to build privacy on.
Tomer, thanks so much for joining us at the desk. We'll see you around the conference.
Thank you so much. Great to see you again.
Thanks, Tomer.
Have a good one.
That was Stellar Development Foundation Chief Product Officer. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
You send money to your mom back home, right? And it's not always straightforward, is it?
It's a pain in the ass.
Exactly. Now try sending money to millions of people during a crisis. It is a logistical nightmare.
So tell me, is there any waking up from this nightmare?
We have access to a tool called Stellar Aid Assist.
Stellar
Aid Assist.
Right, Aid Assist.
The truth is, we're not all on the same playing field. But where there's a problem, there's a solution. Access to the digital economy is still out of reach for many. That's where builders can help. You understand that one unique problem. Let's bring balance to an imbalanced world. Your world relies on you. Who can you rely on? Stellar, where blockchain meets the real world.
Slack is not...
You send money to your mom back home, right? And it's not always straightforward, is it?
It's a pain in the ass.
Exactly. Now try sending money to millions of people during a crisis. It is a logistical nightmare.
So tell me, is there any waking up from this nightmare?
We have access to a tool called Stellar Aid Assist.
Stellar
Aid Assist.
Right, Aid Assist.
The truth is, we're not all on the same playing field. But where there's a problem, there's a solution. Access to the digital economy is still out of reach for many. That's where builders can help. You understand that one unique problem. Let's bring balance to an imbalanced world. Your world relies on you. Who can you rely on? Stellar, where blockchain meets the real world.
Hello and welcome back to CoinDesk Live. We are at Stellar Meridian 2025 in Rio de Janeiro. I'm Jen Sanasi here with my co-host Sam Ewan, and our next guest joins us now. He's at the center of institutional digital asset adoption, powering over $200 billion in stablecoin transactions every month. He is the SVP of Payments and Network at Fireblocks, which just launched its new network for payments and is behind the wallet as a service provider behind the new American Express Passport. Please welcome Ran Goldie. Hey, Ran.
Hey, Jen. Hey, Sam. Thanks for having me. Congrats on this amazing broadcast.
Thank you so much. Congrats on those two announcements I just said. Two big partnerships. But here's where I want to start.
Yeah.
Stablecoins now process more volume than, wait for it, I'm doing a dramatic pause, than Visa and MasterCard combined.
Yes.
Set the stage for us. Where's this volume coming from? What does this mean for financial services as we move forward?
Right. So I think, first of all, I think that in 2025, we didn't just cross the chasm as an industry. We really just leapfrogged across the chasm. And what caused this, obviously, is the change of administration, the Genius Act, everything that's following suit. But what we're seeing right now is that if you're a payments company that up until 2025, you were like on the sidelines, I don't know, stable coins, yes, no, should I touch this USDC, should I touch USDT or whatnot? Everyone now is not asking should they do it, but how fast should they do it? And what we're seeing over the last 9 months is that it's not just the payment companies like the WorldPays of the world and Stripe obviously tripling down every day on more and more, but it's also the banks. So in Fireblocks right now, if we started this year with something like 40 banks, there's more than 110 banks that are now online building stablecoin products. Now, to your question, what's driving a lot of this is obviously the cross-border movement and cross-border type of transactions. What we're seeing is that 50% of what you just stated as the $200 billion worth of stablecoin transactions, about 50% of that is payouts to individuals or businesses want to do cross-border transactions between US to Mexico, Mexico to Singapore, vice versa.
Goldie, 200 billion sounds like a big number.
Yeah.
But is it in the vision of where this is going?
So that is a perfect question, Sam, because the answer is no, right? It's an amazing number because, if you tally it up, we get to let's say 2.4 trillion, right? But money movement globally is 100 trillion a year. That is the opportunity. We're now at 2.4%. We should be excited because last year we were way less than that. But we still have ways to go. And actually, if you really look at the opportunities in this space, money movement is 100 trillion. Alternative assets, tokenization, all the things that are coming and are being talked here at the Stellar Meridian, that's 570 trillion a year, right, of opportunity. So yes, it's amazing, it's encouraging. We've went up from 0.01 to maybe 2.4, but there's still so much to go, right?
And I just want to follow up. That also feels to me, and you mentioned that you guys are working with all these banks and all the credit card companies. I think of that number, which is a staggering number, and I think of all the people stepping on that number to earn fees, and how all of them must be really scared right now that if they don't develop in these new ecosystems, that they're going to be put out. So is that should they be worried, I guess?
Well, I guess, my off the bat answer is, of course, they should be worried, but not because, tomorrow if they won't adapt to stablecoins, that's it, they'll die. That's not the case, right? But the reality is that if I would have told you, I don't know, before Swift came, oh, there's a new thing, you should probably learn about this, then as a bank, you probably should have. As a large financial institution, you probably should have. Now with stablecoins, the companies that have already been doing this, if we look at, again, Stripe and WorldPay is a great example, check out all those kind of companies, Nuvei, they've been doing this for 5-6 years. I would say they have a compounded advantage over the companies that are just waking up because those companies have already trained their risk, already trained their compliance. Their companies feel comfortable touching a stable coin or any type of digital assets, while if you go to all these new companies coming on board, you still need to explain to them what is the blockchain, why is this okay, why aren't you going to get all your money stolen in 1 second? So yes, it's important that they start. This is a rail that if they won't try to understand it, they will be left behind probably in a year or two. But if they start today, they'll probably be fine. But you should start today.
You mentioned all the banks just a few minutes ago and them developing their own stable coins. Do we need all of these stable coins?
100% no is the answer. And it's not because I don't like stablecoins. I've been waiting for this moment for a decade, right? But what I think we need is interoperability. If you're a bank and you want to create a stablecoin because there's actual real need for you to, tokenize funds because you want to move money faster, that's great. But don't try to make that the global USD stablecoin because it's not going to work. Try to create a consortium with other banks. Try to create interoperability so that your clients wouldn't have to think of 50 different types of a dollar. What we do need in stablecoins are more local stablecoins. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's actually a stablecoin here in Brazil called BRL1 that has reached 200 million market cap. That's huge. That's a lot, by the way. That's like 1 billion Brazilian real, right? And we need that. We need a stable coin in Argentina. We need one in Colombia, because eventually we would want to bring FX on chain. We would want someone in the US to send their friend in Brazil money, and just on chain, all that FX will happen automatically, hopefully with the right spreads.
So you guys now have a network for payments.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about sort of the fragmentation in the space and what you're trying to solve for?
Yeah, so we've been getting over the last, I would say, like year, a lot of requests from these new payment companies, new financial institutions. We want to come on board, but we really need someone to help us, convert, let's say, dollars to USDC or Mexican pesos or Colombian pesos to a stable coin, right? And essentially what those companies need to do, they need to go around the globe, start doing due diligence, start figuring out who to work with, how to integrate with them. Then they need to do 10 integrations. They need to orchestrate all of that. Our role as Fireblocks, and this is how we look at ourselves, we're this neutral platform that want to make sure that if you want to come on board into this space, you can just plug into Fireblocks and you have all of the right on and off ramps, the right liquidity providers, the right exchanges already connected at your fingertips. You just need to pick and choose, create your own flow of, I want to on-ramp in Singapore and off-ramp in Ghana. Great, you have that with the providers that we've given you. And you can vet them, of course, but probably if they're on the Fireblocks network, that is already a proof of their credibility in a way and their volume.
Is it almost like middleware for the payments layer?
It is, because we don't want to be part of the flow of funds.
Yeah.
We just want a company that's, let's say a brand new fintech company. They want to get into the space. They want to start offering something in Argentina. I don't want them to go through 6 months of finding people in Argentina to work with because they don't know the location, they don't know the language, everything. I want to give them, here's the 3 best providers. Just click here, you're connected to them, and start working.
We got to wrap up soon, but we got to hear about the American Express partnership. Tell us a little bit about what's happening there.
Well, first of all, I think what American Express has done is amazing. What they want to do is actually, American Express owns their own merchants, right? Unlike other card schemes, they work directly with the merchants. They're also a bank. And they want to, I guess, uplift the experience when you go to a merchant, and how that merchant then, in a way, gives you some sort of recognition for being their client, for being, creating some sort of a loyalty program in a way. But if you really think about it, this is the new cookie, right? Because what you need to think about, with privacy now going online or on browsers and people blocking how advertisers and different merchants can actually learn more about you and your intent, maybe this wallet is the new way for them to learn, because they can see, oh, you actually purchased this in my store. I have an NFT I gave you. Now I think I know what your intents are better. And I think that what American Express has done, forget about the actual project itself. Just the fact that they've put themselves out there, the fact that they've actually adopted this technology goes back to what I said, will give them the compounded edge on other card schemes in the future.
Goldie, thank you so much for joining us here at the desk.
Thank you for having me, Jen and Sam.
All right, that was SVP of Payments and Network at Fireblocks, Ran Goldie. We are going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Sending money around the world is still too hard for too many. But if ideas are borderless, opportunity should be too. That's where builders can help. You understand that one unique problem. Let's bring balance to an imbalanced world. Your world relies on you. Who can you rely on? Stellar, where blockchain meets the real world. The truth is, we're not all on the same playing field.
Puedo mandarle dinero a mi familia, pero quién sabe cuánto llegará. Як ми відновимося? Як захистимо їхнє майбутнє?
كلما ادخرت ازداد شعوري بعدم الأمان. That's where builders can help. You understand that one unique problem. Let's bring balance to an imbalanced world. Stellar, where blockchain meets the real world.
Hello and welcome back to CoinDesk Live. We're at Stellar Meridian 2025 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Our next guest joins us now, the managing partner at Pantera Capital, Paul Veratitekit. Hello.
Hi, nice to see you here.
How's it going? Nice to see you too.
Yeah, I came all the way from San Francisco to be here, so I'm excited. I just got off the plane. I'm excited to be with you guys.
All right, I have a very San Francisco question for you to kick it off today. We've been talking all about stablecoins, but I want to pivot to another major theme this year, and that's been crypto IPOs.
Yes.
And I know that Figure, Circle, and Amber are all Pantera portfolio companies. Talk to us about the wave of crypto IPOs that have happened this year and what that means for you as we move forward in this space.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, for those that don't know, I'm a managing partner at Pantera Capital. I've been doing this, investing at Pantera for the last 11 years. So I feel like I'm probably one of the earliest investors in the space. And to be able to get into the space really early on and seed a lot of these companies and finally seeing them get to this point of exit, point of appreciation from not just like private investors, but actually public investors is so exciting. So it all started with Coinbase, as you guys know. We were a part of that. And now we've been part of every single IPO that has happened. And even like, other ones that are going to come out in the next month or two. I mean, every single one we've hit. And so it's just been a great milestone for the industry. And it really starts with regulations. Ever since we started to talk to investors in 2014, the dark horse in the room, outside of just will Bitcoin break and will there be, problems on that side, is when can we get regulatory clarity so that these companies can really go public and get confidence and comfort from the public markets? And, with the Genius Act going through and hopefully with the Clarity Act continuing to sort of progress, we are going to see a lot more institutional interest. I mean, it started off this year with Circle, one of our portfolio companies from 2014. The Genius Act obviously has brought a lot of interest around stablecoins. And we won't talk too much about stablecoins. You guys already talked a lot about stablecoins. But like, the demand for Circle was tremendous. And then bullish, Figure, Gemini. I mean, this is just the start of what I think is going to be a much larger trend. And what we're doing here at Pantera, outside of being excited as investors, is we are helping our portfolio companies get IPO ready and continuing to tell the narrative of all of the interesting sectors that will be going public. It all starts with infrastructure. You have stablecoins, then you have custody, trading, and we'll start seeing probably more companies around RWAs and things like that. So it just makes our job easier to really sort of educate the entire public of why blockchain is interesting and actually giving companies like that have real world use cases the ability to access the public markets.
Paul, you guys have had an amazing record of being able to pick the right folks, and you mentioned a Circle, Amber, Coinbase. They're doing the work to really create innovation on the product layer, right, on the back-end layer. We have seen this trend very recently around the digital asset treasury companies and some, kind of more SPAC-like behaviors, just to sort of reverse engineer into it.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering your perspective as someone who is in the market when you see a company like Circle building for the last 11 years and finally like getting its recognition and its due for the hard work they put in, compared to someone who starts a Dogecoin, sort of treasury company and tries to hit the market next week.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on the DATs?
I think it's a trend that's here to stay. I think it's a very important trend. Up until now, I mean, companies have had to move offshore to places like the Bahamas and have had to set up this foundation model that just brings a lot more complexity and really just doesn't need to exist and just makes things a lot more difficult to operate. Now we are having these digital asset treasury companies that can really serve and maybe even replace the existing foundation. I mean, the foundation is there to really sort of bring value to the protocol, but they're limited in terms of what they can do and the strategies that they can sort of take and things around like investing into projects or yield or staking or maybe even like M&A it's just tough to do from a foundational perspective. And so now you're able to set up these digital asset treasury companies, and some will only have one being sort of supported by a certain protocol, but some like Solana and some of the larger ones might have multiple ones, and it just brings a little competition, but also just a lot of consolidation to really just help push forward the protocol, give institutional investors access to not just the protocol, but like all of the innovation that could be had with the protocol, staking, yield, M&A, other forms of like ways to sort of accumulate more assets per share. And I think it's an exciting way for these companies that are bringing value to the protocol to do so in a way where they can access untapped capital. And that's just going to bring a lot more sort of just like innovation and oversight to the entire industry.
That's interesting. I want to make sure I understand correctly here. So you're saying that maybe one day in the future, we'll see some of these foundations actually operate under some of these digital asset treasury companies.
We might not even see foundations. We'll see everything be based in the United States. We'll see
Solana Corporation,
and then we'll just see right away these companies going public and accessing the public markets, and then being able to then just generate a lot of value and a lot of sort of financial value for, potentially for investors, that sort of thing.
I know that there is a treasury company that Pantera is participating in, partnership with Helios and Summer Capital. It is a Solana-backed digital asset treasury vehicle. And I want to talk to you a little bit about why Solana. I think we took a look at the markets this morning. Sol's doing very well. Why a Sol digital asset treasury company?
Yes, we did launch a Sol digital asset treasury in conjunction with Summer Capital. It's HSDT, and we're excited about it. Why we pick Sol? I mean, Sol is actually the largest asset that we have on our balance sheet. I mean, we have over 1 billion Sol. And so being an investor, treating it as a portfolio company, we want to do what we can to sort of explain to the public why we're excited about Sol. And we're excited about Sol because they've done a great job around building a technology that can handle the transaction throughput, especially as this space gets more institutional. We need to have transaction throughput to be able to enable some of these use cases around DPIN, AI, payments, that sort of thing. And so Solana is here, ready to scale. It's one of the top 3 in terms of name recognition. We think that institutional investors will, understand it. And they've done a great job of building a very strong developer community. At the end of the day, we need developers to be building products that utilize the underlying technology and underlying token. And we've seen payments, we've seen gaming, we've seen a lot of strong verticals gravitate towards Solana. So we're excited about the fundamentals. Transaction volume for Solana has been very, very high compared to other blockchains.
In ETH's recent rally, the narrative was really that's on the back of institutions, that's on the back of stablecoin acceleration. Now, what I'm hearing is you really believe that Sol can take some of that institutional volume on their blockchain. When you look at the comparison between Sol and ETH, what does that look like? Do you think Sol can outpace ETH one day?
I think Sol's got a great shot of really accelerating the adoption of things like payments. I really do believe so. They've gotten some great partnerships with Visa already, and I believe that their ability to be able to be very commercial in figuring out the best partners for them on that side can really help them stand out.
All right, Paul, last question.
Sure.
Pantera has invested in 22 unicorns. I think you handpicked 17 of them. I have probably 200 Brazilian reais in my room. Where am I putting it to be able to be you in the future?
Look, I mean, all the credit goes to my team. All the credit goes to the entrepreneurs themselves. I mean, if you look at
what makes an entrepreneur that you want to invest in?
It's resiliency. It's knowing that they are very methodical about how they want to go about their business. They treat money and their investors the right way, and they will do whatever it takes to succeed. Whether it's going after a big vision right away, or whether it's starting off with a smaller market and being able to expand. And it's also knowing what they're good at and what they need help with, and being able to be open to feedback. Those are all the things that I'm looking for in an accomplished entrepreneur.
Paul, thank you so much for joining us at the desk. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
That was Pantera Capital Managing Partner, Paul Varadatekit. All right, Sam, we are getting to the end of our programming. If people were questioning if we were live, we proved it.
We are very live.
We are very live. A lot of really interesting conversations we had there. You have your 200 Brazilian reals in your room. After Paul gave you that feedback, I mean, where are you placing it? There's a hackathon we can go to after.
I'm going to find out which entrepreneur is as dedicated and as focused as Paul is looking for in terms of CEOs and builders. But I also might put it in a company like Cheesecake Labs, which has a long history here in Brazil and probably will take my Brazilian reals and do the most with it. So we might have someone who can help tell us what that company does.
Well, let's see. Our next guest is the CEO of Cheesecake Labs, a tech company with a long history in Brazil that's partnered with everyone from Web3 startups to Fortune 500 companies, helping to turn complex ideas into real-world products. Marcello Gracietti, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Hello.
Great to have you here. I know we said that the company has a long history in Brazil. I believe there's a headquarters now in the United States as well.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about Cheesecake Labs and how you've incorporated Web3 into your operations.
Yeah, so Cheesecake Labs as a company, we've been working in the market for about 12 years, helping clients build software across a variety of industries. And the blockchain space specifically, we've been building since 2018 and on Stellar since 2020. So there's a lot that we have built in the blockchain space, particularly on Stellar.
So you've been here for a while is what you're trying to tell us.
Yeah, exactly. And our headquarters is here in Brazil, and we have a subsidiary in SF so that we can bridge this gap and connect well with clients who are in the US looking to build products for Latin America or for global solutions as well.
What are Web3 companies looking for? Web2 companies looking for when it comes to implementing Web3? Sam and I have been talking a lot about stablecoins, but would love to hear from your perspective what that looks like.
Yeah, so one of the type of clients that we have are traditional companies who already have like one product in the Web 2 and they're looking to expand and find like a new value in the Web 3. And those are the type of companies we love working with, particularly because they usually have a very strong product market fit already and they're looking to expand into doing something else. So one great example that also runs on Stellar is MoneyGram. So basically they're very traditional remittance companies and we've worked with them over the past 2 or 3 years to launch a new Stellar-based digital wallet that basically allows MoneyGram to offer a better user experience for whoever is receiving USDC from MoneyGram. And we've also seen a lot of clients who already offer basically different like traditional payments as a merchants. And those merchants, because of stablecoins, they're now looking for new ways to receive money as well. So they're also kind of extending their current application to accept USDC or other stablecoins as well.
Marcello, you talk about being in the software business. When we were prepping to come down here, the Stellar team mentioned that they sold out their number of tickets and that a big majority of that was developers.
Yeah.
What is it about the region that sort of is so exciting for people to learn, to be developers here? Is that just an economic opportunity? Is there just a penchant for talent? What is it?
I think there's an opportunity for like both for builders, for engineers, and for companies who are looking for engineers and talents to build different products. And the way I say this is particularly because like Brazil as a country, there are more than 200 million people living here. And out of those, between like 700 to 800,000 people are either software engineers or designers. So there's a huge amount of talent which is already based here. And if you look at the quality of those talent, that's amazing. And the proof of this is because like some solutions like Pix, which is innovative payment solutions, was born and designed and built in Brazil. Nubank, which is one of the largest digital companies in the banking industry, was also like born in Brazil. So this talent is really, really exceptional, right? And when it comes to culture, I think Brazil has something really special when it comes to talent. It's because like from a personal perspective, I've lived and worked in 4 different countries. And I've never seen people who are so committed, with so much drive into building great products as people here in Brazil. And I can say that sometimes dealing with engineers can be hard, but engineers in Brazil, they don't have an ego. They just have this huge drive into building great products.
What do you think it is about Brazilians that really have that drive to solve problems? It sounds like what you're telling me is like there's no ego. They are just really committed to solving issues. What is it, do you think, about the culture and the people here?
Yeah, so I think one of the kind of main reasons behind this is because Brazil as a culture, as a country, is very, very diverse. Like really, like anyone here could be Brazilian because Brazilian is really this mix of culture. And very often, like to build innovative products, you do need people who are very diverse from different backgrounds. So when it comes to like this key ingredient, I think Brazil adds something really, really special. And when you look at the type of products that Cheesecake Labs and other companies in Brazil have been able to do in terms of innovating either in the fintech space or in other areas as well, I think this is kind of a proof of how this diversity, which kind of ties back to the culture, is really, really special.
So you're working with a number of companies. They're coming to you to help build different services, ideally on blockchain. what are the types of requests that you're getting? Is it primarily payments and remittances, or there are people who are looking at social and gamification? Sort of what's the sweet spot here?
Yeah, so in the last 5 years, most of the demand that we've seen for Cheesecake is a lot about like wallets, particularly because wallets can offer a very good experience for particular industries, particular audiences as well. So it could be, for example, someone in Ghana who wants a better experience to get paid from people from people in the US. It could be companies like MoneyGram doing cross-border payments, or freelancers in Brazil being paid as well. So this is one area. And we've also been seeing in the last 2 or 3 years industries who are looking to tokenize assets. So it could be a company who has like one financial traditional systems who wants to tokenize gold, for example, and then Stellar is a great network to tokenize this type of assets. It could be a company who wants to build a new stablecoins or a new asset tokenized on chain. So all those main two are the type of products and demand that you have seen at least over the past 5 years. And in 2018, which kind of way back there, it was a lot about ICOs. So companies who wanted to issue like an initial coin offer to raise funds, they were using us as well a lot. But in the last 3 to 5 years, we've seen mostly about like wallets and asset tokenization.
I want to take Sam's question and just ask it through a different lens. You know, that was a question about what businesses are coming to you for. But if we come back to Brazil, what are Brazilians doing when it comes to crypto? We've talked a lot about stablecoins, so I think we get it when it comes to payments. But like, is there a burgeoning community when it comes to gaming? Are people looking at, I don't know, meme coins or DPIN or something like that? Like, what does the crypto scene look like in Brazil?
Yeah, so for the gaming industry, I think this is one area where a lot of, not only in Brazil, but for people who are like younger, they've been using like NFTs just to kind of gamify and create a better experience for this particular audience. And to this point, this is kind of also why SDF and Cheesecake have built like this experience around Meridian Pay for us as well in this event. But this is something like which is not for Brazilians in general. I would say this is particular for people who are in the gaming industry, in particular for people who are at a younger age, right? And then when it comes to like people outside of this industry, freelancers, for example, which also ties back at the end of the day to stablecoins and cross-border. This is one area that has found a lot of kind of market fit in Brazil. And one of the wallets that also Cheesecake built over the past years is called Vestio. Is doing a great work, particularly because it integrates Stellar and cross-border payments with Pix. So anyone who uses this product can kind of integrate this new like Web3 space with Pix, which is kind of their day-to-day. So they can literally like go to Copacabana Beach and buy like a coconut water and pay with their stablecoins.
Marcelo, I know you're partners also with the SDF on the Stellar Asset Sandbox. So tell us what that enables partners to do.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So basically, this ties back to about 2 or 3 years ago, where we were seeing a lot of clients having the same type of requests about trying to learn how it looks like to issue, mine, and manage assets on Stellar. So because we were receiving those constant and very similar type of demand, we helped Mercado Bitcoin to issue their own Brazilian-pegged stablecoin called MBRL. And then we created this sandbox that basically allows for anyone who is looking to learn and really see like in reality how it looks like to use those assets with all those control features for compliance that Stellar has. They can just use this platform. And then of course, once they actually get convinced that, and once they see like that in reality it's so easy and safe and secure and cheap as well to use Stellar, they usually kind of either connect with us or they do internally, like this next step to take this to production, where they basically integrate this like stablecoin asset issuance platform to be integrated with their own systems.
As we wrap up here, we're at Stellar Meridian. You said that they've been a partner of yours since 2020. Why has Stellar been such a good partner? And tell us a little bit about the community that you're going to experience when you walk away from this desk.
Yeah, so we love working with Stellar specifically because like it's a very serious foundation. The technology is amazing. So we can recommend like Stellar blockchain, like eyes closed for a lot of different partners who comes to us. And SDF offers a lot of support for anyone who's looking to build like real-world solutions on the network, right? And when you look at all the solutions that you have built, it's kind of a proof of how good this partnership is. And I do love that this Meridian is being done like for the very first time here in Brazil and here in Latin America, because this is an opportunity for like new business and new companies who are from other countries to actually see in real life how digitalized and mature is the financial system in Brazil already. So they could potentially look to expand like their products to Brazil. And also anyone who's looking for talent can also see how mature is the ecosystem here in Brazil and how people here already have the right experience to support them.
Marcello, thanks so much for joining us at the event, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
No, thank you so much.
Thank you, Marcello.
Likewise.
That was Cheesecake Labs CEO Marcello Gracietti. All right, Sam, we are at the end of day one. What are you looking forward to?
I think for me, we've heard a lot of great conversations about wallets, about stablecoins, about the real world use cases. I'm very interested tomorrow to talk more about what are the big announcements coming out of this the conference. There's always a lot of big stuff that happens. And so each year it feels like we kind of iterate more and more. I think Tomer or Goldie said it. We also have this year had a big leapfrog in what regulation has allowed. So I'm very interested to see if we can predict some of the winners that are coming out of this when it comes to announcements perspective and the brands that are here. I think it's going to be a really exciting day too.
We really set the foundation for those announcements that are coming tomorrow. I mentioned earlier there are some big ones that we are going to talk about right here at the desk. I'm also interested in learning about what's going on not only in Brazil but in the rest of Latin America, so that we can bring that conversation to our audience. You know, we so often cover the U.S. markets, the European Union, and so those real world use cases, I really have a special place in my heart for them.
Yeah, I sort of wish that the crypto industry would spend more time in places like Brazil, Mexico, Asia, because I just think you have a different conversation.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons that whether it's the Stellar Conference or some of the other ones that we've done outside of the US have been more meaningful, because, look, just to be real, if you're in New York, if you're in Los Angeles, if you're in Las Vegas, and you're having a conversation, you're going to have a different conversation. Yeah. Here you see people who are trying to solve problems on the ground. I think what Marcello said was very interesting about the idea of, it sounded like, almost, 700,000 to 800,000 people in Brazil are developers. We are an industry that needs developers. Everyone's trying to look for folks to hire. So I would hear that and say, oh, I need to think about spending time
in Brazil.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just Brazil, it's Argentina, it's Central America, it's Mexico, and then we could look at what's happening in Asia. There's so much talent and there's so much vision and so much ideation happening in the other parts of the world that we sometimes get a little overstuck on what the stock price of Coinbase is. And all that stuff is important for us, don't get me wrong, but the groundwork is being done outside of the US, outside of Europe.
I think that's a really important conversation to be had, because for a long time we saw crypto companies move away from the United States and start looking at different regions like Brazil when it comes to their headquarters and where they're going to set up teams, largely driven by what was going on with regulation in the United States. Now that regulation has taken a turn, they're looking to headquarter there so that they can engage more with regulators. But I think you bring up a really important point. It's, where are the use cases? Where are the developers? Where are the people really experiencing the challenges that you're trying to solve? And so I think that's something that firms and companies should be considering when they're looking at where they're going to have their headquarters or where they might have satellite offices.
Totally agree. I also think, we heard from Marcello that they're working with MoneyGram, for example, who's coming out with a digital wallet. We also spoke to Decaf, who has their digital wallet. We spoke to Acuna, have their digital wallet. Stellar has their own wallet, right? So I think my takeaway always at Meridian is the Venmos, the PayPals, the Chase, JP Morgans, the things that we use on our phone in North America are being incubated, driven, and adopted by local markets around the world, but they're not going to be named Venmo. They're not going to be named PayPal. They're going to be named something else, and it might be Acuna, it might be Decaf. It certainly is going to be MoneyGram. And I think we should be comfortable that there is an entire new set of people who are building the future of finance, and it is not happening in North America. And that's exciting to me because North America will benefit.
All right, we are going to be back here tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Brazil time for day 2 of CoinDesk Live from Stellar Meridian 2025. So come back, same time, same place. We will be live on CoinDesk's homepage. We'll be on X, LinkedIn, and all of our other socials. If you missed part of this live and you want to watch it back, it is available on our social channels on demand, so you can just rewind and see all of the incredible conversations we've had from Stellar Meridian 2025. Thanks so much for watching today. For Sam Ewan, I'm Jen Sanasi. We will see you tomorrow.